Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. Oliver stands on the rooftop of Massachusetts General Hospital overlooking Boston at night. The fall wind ruffled his white coat, and in the distance the Charles River sparkled in the moonlight. He took a deep breath and tried to calm the waves inside him. Today, he finally confirms the last thing he wanted to face. Sophia has betrayed him. This realization did not come out of nowhere, but after months of observation and investigation. It all started 6 months ago on a normal Thursday night. That day, Oliver returned home exhausted from a 12-hour heart transplant surgery. He looks forward to having dinner with Sophia and catching up on their respective days, but the house is empty. Oliver called Sophia, but it went straight to voicemail. He sent a text asking where she was and if she was safe. Sophia didn't come home until late at night, explaining that she was working on an important case and her cell phone ran out of battery, so she didn't see the message. Oliver was about to press for details, but swallowed his questions when he saw Sophia's tired appearance. However, such situations are starting to become more frequent. Sophia often excuses herself from work and stays out late, sometimes all night. Whenever Oliver asked, Sophia always downplayed it by saying she was working on an important case. However, Oliver could see a hint of weakness in her twinkling eyes. Oliver begins to notice some unusual behavior in Sophia. She began to pay extra attention to her image, buying lots of new clothes and even going for a full beauty treatment. Her cell phone is always set to silent and is never out of reach. A few times, Oliver had inadvertently glimpsed her looking at her cell phone when some intimate text message had flashed across the screen, but Sophia had always been quick to turn the screen off. Those details made Oliver's suspicions grow deeper and deeper. He started searching the internet for things like how to spot a cheating partner, and the more he read, the more he realized that Sophia's behavior was consistent with the signs of cheating. Oliver decided to investigate further. He started keeping track of Sophia's schedule and realized that she often worked overtime on Wednesday and Friday nights. One time, Oliver pretended to go on a business trip, but actually came home early. He realizes that Sophia is not at home, but has gone out dressed up. Finally, on a rainy Friday afternoon, Oliver decides to stalk Sophia. He took a half-day off work and came to Sophia's neighborhood during her shift. He sees Sophia leaving the office with a strange man, both acting in a manner so intimate that it's obvious they are more than just ordinary coworkers. Oliver tracks Sophia down to an upscale restaurant downtown. He saw Sophia walk into the restaurant with the man, acting intimately, and then disappearing into the lobby. Oliver sits in his car in the parking lot with an inner conflict and pain. He knew that if he went up there now, he would probably catch him red-handed. But doing so might create an unnecessary scene and possibly jeopardize his career. After a fierce battle of ideas, Oliver decides to take a relatively sensible approach. He took out his cell phone and sent Sophia a message. "Honey, I got off work early today. Where are you? Shall we have dinner together?" Then Oliver waited. 10 minutes passed with no reply. 20 minutes had passed, and there was still no reply. Oliver's heart sank. He knew Sophia's cell phone was never far away, and if she was really working late, she couldn't have gone this long without replying to messages. Just as Oliver was about to leave, his cell phone vibrated. It was Sophia's reply. "I'm sorry, dear. I'm in the middle of an important meeting, and it may be late. You go ahead and eat without waiting for me." Oliver stared at the message and felt his heart cut out. He knew Sophia was lying because he had seen her enter the restaurant. The lie certainly confirmed his worst suspicions. Oliver took a deep breath and replied, "Okay, get some rest. Love you." Then, silently, he started the car and drove away from the restaurant. He didn't impulsively barge into the restaurant or conference on the spot. Instead, he chose a saner, more legally valid way to gather evidence. Over the next few weeks, Oliver began keeping meticulous records of Sophia's whereabouts and phone calls. He notices Sophia's frequent texting with the man, whom he later learns is Mark Johnson, a prominent judge in Boston, and the unusual amount of overtime she is working. He even hires a private investigator to covertly follow and take photos of Sophia and Mark meeting. Eventually, Oliver had hard evidence in his hands. Photos of Sophia and Mark on numerous occasions, talking intimately, having dinner, and even going in and out of restaurants together. This evidence is not only sufficient to prove Sophia's betrayal, but can also come in handy in possible future divorce proceedings. As Oliver looked through the photos for the last time, he felt a deep pang of sadness and betrayal. He sat in his study, staring at the image of Sophia and Mark getting intimate on his computer screen, his anger growing. He remembered their wedding vows, the sweet times they had had, and everything he had given to the marriage. Now it's all a huge joke. The day Oliver's plan for revenge begins to unfold, the weather in Boston is overcast, as if foreshadowing an impending storm. He took action against Mark first. He anonymously provided these media outlets with detailed evidence of Mark's bribe-taking, including bank transfer records, witness statements, and even some blurry surveillance footage. At the same time, Oliver reported Mark's offenses to the Department of Justice. The fact that he chose to make this information public at a time when Mark was working on a big, high-profile case ensured that the media would give it maximum attention. The next morning, the citizens of Boston awoke to be greeted by a flood of news reports. The front page of the local newspaper carried the headline, "Prominent Judge Suspected of Taking Multiple Bribes." The local TV morning news program opened with this breaking news, with the host explaining the scandal in detail and in a serious tone. On social media, the topic of their derailment was retweeted and commented on by people expressing their disappointment and anger at the once highly respected judge. Mark's co-workers and friends began to alienate him. He was shunned by other judges and staff in the courtroom. His once proud social circle instantly disintegrated, and the socialites who used to vie for pictures with him have now deleted all social media content related to him. The media began to dig deeper, and more scandals came to light. A reporter dug up some of Mark's earlier misdeeds, such as alleged academic misconduct during his college days. Others have found clear signs of favoritism in some of his rulings, which has triggered a re-examination of all his past cases. Unable to cope with the public pressure, Mark's wife moved to her mother's house with their children. His neighbors poured it out for the cameras, saying Mark had always been an arrogant man who never got involved in the community. Just as the storm of public opinion was at its height, Oliver began the second phase of his plan. He anonymously sent a detailed whistleblower letter to Sophia's law firm, disclosing her unethical behavior. At the same time, he sent intimate photos of Sophia and Mark to several gossip outlets. This new information is like adding fuel to the fire, making the already boiling public opinion even more out of control. The headlines became "Incestuous Love Affair Between Bribery-Involved Judge and Prominent Female Lawyer." The media started digging into Sophia's past, with photos of her partying in college and failed cases from her early years all turning up. On social media, people began discussing whether the relationship had compromised justice. It's been pointed out that several of the cases Sophia worked on happened to be tried by Mark, raising suspicions of possible transfers of interest. Sophia's law firm quickly disassociated itself from her. They issued a statement saying that they had dissolved their relationship with Sophia and would conduct a full review of all the cases she handled. Sophia's clients were terminating their engagements, and the professional reputation she had built up over the years collapsed overnight. Sophia's social circle has also taken a huge hit. Her girlfriends expressed their sense of betrayal in media interviews, saying they never thought Sophia would do something like this. Oliver, he's the only one who's seen it all. He saw Mark on television, weeping in his defense, claiming to be a victim of political persecution. He saw Sophia fleeing in distress and hiding in her car as she was surrounded by reporters. All of this was faithfully documented by news footage and looped across all major media platforms. The streets were abuzz with the scandal. In cafes and subway cars, people can be heard discussing these shameless dogs. An online petition has been launched to demand a thorough investigation into corruption in the judicial system. Just as public opinion continues to fester, Oliver strikes again. He told the press on condition of anonymity that Sophia had once leaked confidential client information while working on a high-profile case. The news triggered a new wave of shock as people began to question Sophia's professionalism as a lawyer. Sophia's alma mater, a law school that was once proud of her, issued a statement disassociating itself from her. They emphasized the requirement for students to adhere to professional ethics and said that they would invite other distinguished alumni to give lectures on professional ethics. Mark and Sophia's family were not spared. Mark's siblings said in an interview that they were shocked and ashamed of Mark's behavior. Sophia's parents, a couple who had been highly respected in the community, had to temporarily move out of the neighborhood where they had lived for decades to avoid the strange looks of their neighbors. Mark and Sophia's lives were completely destroyed in a public outcry that lasted for weeks. Not only have they lost their jobs and reputations, but they have also lost the support of friends and family. They became the laughing stock of the town and had nowhere to run. Oliver watched it all with mixed emotions. He knew he had succeeded in his revenge, but he wasn't as fastidious as he thought he would be. He sat at home as the TV cycled through the latest developments on the scandal. Outside the window, the fall rain pattered, as if accompanying the tragedy. On this stormy night, Sophia returns home. She looked haggard. Her eyes were red and swollen, and she had obviously been crying. Oliver sat on the couch in the living room, waiting for her quietly. "Why?" Oliver asked calmly. "Why did you betray me?" Sophia froze. She hadn't expected Oliver to ask that question directly. She opened her mouth to explain, but in the end just lowered her head in silence. "You know, Sophia," Oliver continued, "I used to love you so much. I thought we'd grow old hand in hand for the rest of our lives. But now, looking at you, I feel nothing but strangeness and disgust." Sophia finally broke down. She fell to her knees in front of Oliver and cried bitterly. "I'm sorry, Oliver, it's not what you think. I can tell you the truth, but not now. Please believe me." Oliver looked at Sophia coldly, without the slightest fluctuation in his mind. He stood up and looked condescendingly at Sophia, who was kneeling on the floor. "Believe? Sophia, do you think anyone in this world will still believe in you? Look at you now. Your career is ruined. Your reputation is in tatters. Do you think all of this is a fluke?" Sophia looks up at Oliver in disbelief. You mean, you did all this?" Oliver shows a cool smile. "That's right. This is my gift to you, my dear. Haven't you always wanted more attention? Now that so many people are paying attention to you, are you satisfied?" Sophia was completely devastated, and she curled up on the floor, crying in pain. Oliver watched it all quietly, without a trace of pity in his heart. He turned toward the bedroom and began to pack his bags. "We're done, Sophia," Oliver said. "I'll have a lawyer handle the divorce. I hope you find true happiness in the future." With that, Oliver dragged his suitcase out of the house. The rainstorm outside continued, but he felt much more relaxed throughout. He knew that he had turned a new page in his life. Oliver stood in front of the door to the ballroom of the Omni Parker House Hotel, took a deep breath, and straightened his suit. For the first time since the successful execution of his revenge plan against Sophia and Mark, he faces the entire family. He knew that the real test was just around the corner. Pushing open the door to the hall, warm air and cheerful chatter immediately surrounded him. His parents, siblings, and some distant relatives had all arrived. Oliver looks around and sees familiar faces, but feels more alienated than ever. Oliver, his mother, Elizabeth, was the first to notice his arrival. She walked over quickly and gave Oliver a hug. "We've all been worried about you, honey. How have you been?" Oliver forced a smile. "I'm fine, Mom. Work has been busy." A flicker of concern flashed in Elizabeth's eyes. "I know you've been through a lot, but—" She was about to say something, but in the end she just patted Oliver's shoulder gently. "Come on, your father wants to talk to you." Oliver followed his mother to his father, David Sr. David Sr. is a retired surgeon and the main reason Oliver chose his medical path. "Son," David Sr. said seriously, "we need to talk. About Sophia, about your recent behavior." Oliver felt a pang of discomfort. "Dad, I don't think this is the right time or place." "So when is the right time?" David Sr.'s voice rose a bit, drawing the attention of those around him. "You've ruined 2 lives, Oliver. That's not the way we taught you." Oliver's anger was instantly ignited. "They ruined my life. Sophia betrayed me and Mark. He used his position to do so many shady things." I just let the truth come out. At this point, Oliver's sister, Sarah, interjected, Oliver, we understand that you've been hurt, but your retaliation has gone beyond what is reasonable. Have you thought about the impact this will have on our family? Oliver gave a laugh. Family influence? Where were you all when my heart was broken? Where were you all when I needed support? David Sr.'s face became harsher. That's enough, Oliver. We've been here all along. But you've locked yourself away and refused help from anyone. You chose the worst way to handle this. The relatives around them began to whisper, some with disapproving expressions, others looking embarrassed. Oliver felt as if he had become a besotted alien. Just then, Oliver's mother, Elizabeth, tried to ease the tension. Maybe we should just sit down and talk, she said gently. Oliver, honey, we all love you. We just want you to walk away and start over. Oliver looked into his mother's concerned eyes and felt a pang of guilt. But then he remembers Sophia's betrayal, the sickening photos and videos, and his anger reignites. Start over? Oliver said coldly, do you want me to forgive the woman who betrayed me, or accept the judge who abused his power? David Sr. sighs, son, revenge won't heal your wounds. It will only turn you into the kind of person you hate the most. You're a doctor, and it's your job to save lives, not hurt people. His father's words were like a sharp sword, piercing right through his heart. Has he indeed become the kind of person he once despised the most? Sarah spoke again, her tone softening a bit. Oliver, we all want you to be happy, but right now, you don't seem happy at all. Maybe it's time to let go of the past and give yourself a chance to start over. Oliver looked around and saw the concerned and slightly disappointed eyes of his family. He felt a sudden suffocation, as if the air had been drained from the entire room. I need some fresh air, Oliver muttered, then turned and walked briskly out of the ballroom. Oliver came out onto the terrace of the hotel, the cold air irritating his skin and clearing his mind a little. He looked at the Boston skyline in the distance, still conflicted and confused inside. The words of his family echoed in his mind, questioning his behavior and shaking his resolve. Just then, his cell phone vibrated. It was an urgent message from the hospital that a heart surgery required his immediate return. Oliver stared at the message and suddenly realized that even as his life was in turmoil, there were still people who needed his expertise, who needed him to save lives. This realization put Oliver in deep thought. His plan for revenge did succeed, but at what cost? He loses Sophia, alienates his family, and even begins to question his beginnings as a doctor. However, at the moment there is a patient waiting for him to save his life. Does this mean that he still has a chance to rediscover himself and redefine his value? Oliver took a deep breath and decided to return to the ballroom to say goodbye to his family. As he pushed open the door, all eyes were on him with anticipation and concern. His father, David Sr., stood up and seemed to want to say something. But Oliver spoke first. I have to leave. There's an emergency surgery at the hospital. He paused, then added, when I'm done with this surgery, maybe we can talk about it. Elizabeth walked up and gave her son a hug. Go on. Take care. Remember, no matter what happens, we will always love you. As he left Omni Parker House, a million questions flashed through Oliver's mind. Could I find inner peace in the operating room? Should I really reconsider my behavior? If I let go of my hatred, how will I face the betrayal and hurt? With these questions in mind, Oliver drove to the hospital. He didn't know what awaited him, but he knew one thing for sure. Tonight's surgery was not only about the patient's life, it could also determine the course of his own future. As Oliver walked through the hospital doors, his cell phone vibrated once again. This time it wasn't a message from the hospital, but an unfamiliar number. He hesitated, but clicked on the text message. The message consisted of one short line. Oliver, we need to talk. You may not know the whole truth about Sophia. M. Oliver stared at the cryptic text message for a moment, at a loss for words. Who are the M's? What truth do they know? Just as he was pondering the meaning of this unexpected message, a nurse came hurrying in to remind him that the surgery was ready. Oliver puts away his cell phone and walks briskly toward the operating room. He knew that for the next few hours he would have to give his full attention to the upcoming surgery. But deep down, The questions raised by that text message were like seeds, quietly taking root. He had a vague feeling that perhaps there were more secrets waiting to be revealed after this storm of vengeance. On New Year's Eve, Boston's Beacon Hill neighborhood is lit up. A big New Year's Eve party is going on at Larry Thompson's mansion. As one of Boston's top surgeons, Oliver was reluctant to attend such a social occasion, but at his parents' insistence, he reluctantly agreed. Oliver stands in the corner, a glass of champagne in his hand, quietly observing the crowd around him. He'd been thinking about that mysterious text message since the unpleasantness of the Christmas family gathering. Who is M? What kind of truth did they know? These questions haunted him and made it difficult for him to concentrate. Just then, a familiar voice interrupted his thoughts. Oliver, it's been a long time. Oliver turns around and sees his college friend Michael standing in front of him. Michael is now a detective with the Boston Police Department, and they haven't seen each other in a couple years. Michael, Oliver forced a smile. Happy New Year. Michael seemed to sense Oliver's discomfort, and he lowered his voice. Oliver, we need to talk. It's about Sophia and Mark. Oliver's heart suddenly raced. Could Michael be the mysterious M? They found a quiet corner. Michael looked around to make sure no one was listening, then spoke. Oliver, I know what you did to Sophia and Mark, but there is something you may not know. Oliver felt a pang of unease. What do you mean? Michael took a deep breath. Sophia may have been framed. We've recently been investigating a large case of judicial corruption in which Mark was only a minor player. There is evidence that Sophia may have been coerced. The news came as a bolt from the blue, and Oliver was left reeling. How is that possible? I saw it with my own eyes. Appearances can be deceiving sometimes, Oliver, Michael interrupted. We suspect that someone is using Sophia to get close to Mark and get some key information. She may have been forced into it. A million images flashed through Oliver's mind. Sophia's tears, her explanations, her pleading eyes. He used to turn a blind eye to all that, focusing only on his own pain and anger. Why are you telling me this now? Oliver asked, his voice shaking a little. Michael sighed. Because we need your help. You're the only one with access to Sophia. We need your help to get some critical information. His vengeance, his anger, all his behavior, suddenly became ridiculous and absurd. If Sophia is truly innocent, then hasn't he made an irreparable mistake? Just then, Larry, the host of the party, came over. Oliver, my friend, why are you hiding here? Come, let me introduce you to a beautiful beauty. Before Oliver can respond, Larry pulls him into the middle of the group. There he saw a beautiful young woman smiling at him. This is Anne, our new head nurse at the hospital, Larry introduced. Oliver, maybe you guys could talk? Oliver nodded reluctantly, but his mind was elsewhere. He talked mechanically to Anne, but out of the corner of his eye he kept looking for Michael. Suddenly, Oliver notices that several family members are whispering at the other end of the room, occasionally looking in his direction. He realized that this might be a blind date orchestrated by his family. Oliver was suffocating from internal struggles and external pressures. How is he supposed to deal with the mistakes he may have made? How is he going to explain this to Sophia? If he's going to help with the investigation, how is he going to reapproach Sophia? Just then the clock struck midnight. The new year is here and people start cheering, hugging, and wishing. But for Oliver, the start of this new year has been full of uncertainty and challenges. Amidst all the laughter, Oliver quietly slipped out of the party. He stood on the balcony of Larry's mansion, looking out over Boston at night. Fireworks bloomed in the sky in the distance, mirroring his complicated mind. Oliver pulls out his cell phone and flips to Sophia's number. His finger hovered over the dialing button, hesitating. Should I contact Sophia immediately or wait for more information? If Sophia is truly innocent, how can he repair the damage he's done? Just then, the cell phone suddenly vibrated. It's a new text message from the same mysterious number. Time is running out. Sophia needs your help. Tomorrow at noon, Charles, on the river bench. Don't let anyone know. M. Oliver stared at the message with a mixture of ambivalence and unease. He knew that the next choice could change everything. And right now, the New Year's bells are still echoing in his ears, as if to remind him that it's a new year, a new beginning, and perhaps a new truth waiting to be revealed. The first day of the new year was shrouded in a mist in Boston. Oliver stood by a bench on the banks of the Charles River and looked around nervously. The mysterious text message he received last night still echoed in his mind. Soon, a familiar figure came through the fog. "Michael," Oliver said, "why would you contact me this way?" Michael looked around and lowered his voice. "I'm sorry, Oliver. The situation is more complicated than we thought. We suspect someone is watching you and Sophia." Oliver felt a chill run down his spine. What the hell happened? Michael pulled a USB flash drive out of his pocket. "There is some key information here. We suspect that there is a large criminal syndicate manipulating the entire justice system. Mark is just one of their pawns, and Sophia, she may have been forced into it. She may have been forced into it." Oliver felt a moment of shock. "How is that possible? I saw it with my own eyes." "Appearances can be deceiving sometimes, Oliver," Michael interrupted. "We suspect that someone is using Sophia to get close to Mark and get some key information. She may have been forced into it." A million images flashed through Oliver's mind. Sophia's tears, her explanations, her pleading eyes. He used to turn a blind eye to all that, focusing only on his own pain and anger. "Why are you telling me this now?" Oliver asked, his voice shaking a little. Michael sighed. "Because we need your help. You're the only one with access to Sophia. We need your help to get some critical information." Oliver frowned. "Are you asking me to cheat on Sophia after I've already hurt her?" Michael sighed. "I know it's hard, but it may be the only way to help Sophia. If we can expose the truth, we might be able to clear her name." The two men talked for a while longer, established contact information, and Michael left in a hurry. Oliver held the flash drive with an inexplicable heaviness. He decided to go home and scrutinize the so-called key information. Back home, Oliver immediately checked the contents of the flash drive. It contains more evidence of Mark's corruption, an organizational chart of the suspected crime syndicate, and several photos of Sophia. These photos show Sophia meeting with strangers on various occasions, some of whom Oliver recognizes as local gang members. What's most disturbing is that in one of the photos, Sophia looks terrified. Oliver's heart sank. He began to question his judgment. If Sophia was truly coerced, then his retaliation is all the more cruel and unjust. Just then, Oliver's cell phone rings. It's the hospital. It says Sophia's at the hospital looking for him. Oliver rushes to the hospital and finds Sophia in his office. "Sophia," Oliver said softly, "we need to talk." Sophia nodded, a flicker of unease in her eyes. Oliver took a deep breath and cut right to the chase. "Sophia, I need to know the truth. What really happened?" Sophia sits in a chair and crosses her arms in her lap. She looked up at Oliver with mixed emotions in her eyes. "Oliver, I owe you an explanation," she began, her voice trembling a little. "What happened between Mark and I? It's not as simple as you think." Oliver listened quietly, trying to remain calm. Sophia continues, "A few months ago, I was working on a case when I noticed something unusual. The case involved some powerful people, including several judges, including Mark." Oliver's brow furrowed. "Are you saying that Mark has broken the law?" Sophia nodded. "It's not just Mark. I found out that there is a group that manipulates the outcome of certain cases. They are influencing the verdicts in various ways so that they can make huge profits." Oliver felt a moment of shock. "So you and Mark." "I approached Mark to get more information," Sophia explains. "At first, I just wanted to get more inside information and hopefully resolve the issue using the proper legal channels. But things quickly spiraled out of control." Oliver stands up and walks over to the window. He needed some time to digest the information. "Why didn't you tell me? Or report it to the authorities?" He finally asked, a hint of pain in his voice. Guilt flashed in Sophia's eyes. "I should have done it, Oliver. But I was afraid. These people have a lot of power and influence. I'm afraid that if I go public with this information, it could jeopardize our safety, including yours and my family's." Oliver turned and looked Sophia straight in the eye. "So why tell me now?" Sophia took a deep breath. "Because it got more complicated. Mark and the others started to suspect that I knew something. They started to threaten me, suggesting that something bad would happen if I told. I felt very scared and didn't know what to do. At that moment, he remembered his vengeful behavior and felt an intense pang of guilt. Sophia, I don't know what to say, he said, his voice trembling a little. My behavior. I'm so sorry. I should have listened to your explanation first. Sophia shakes her head. I understand your reaction, Oliver. From your perspective, everything points to me betraying you. I just wish I had gotten up the courage to tell you the truth sooner. They fell into a brief silence. Finally, Oliver opened his mouth and asked, What now? How do we deal with this situation? Sophia looked Oliver straight in the eye. I need your help, Oliver. We need to gather more evidence to expose this corrupt network in a safe way. But I can't face this alone. Oliver sighed deeply, sensing the gravity of the situation. He looked at Sophia and saw the fear and hope in her eyes. So, what do you need me to do now? Oliver asked, concern and determination in his voice. Sophia looks Oliver straight in the eye. Oliver, I have gathered some evidence about how this corrupt network works and who is involved. But I'm in too dangerous a position to safely pass on that information. She paused and took a deep breath. I need you to do me a favor. I want to get this evidence to someone I can trust. But I can't meet them in person. It's too dangerous. Can you help me? Oliver nodded, then suddenly remembered something. Sophia, I have an idea. Earlier today, I met Michael, who is a detective with the police department. He told me that they are investigating a large case of judicial corruption. Maybe we could give him the evidence at the same time? There was a flash of surprise in Sophia's eyes, followed by thought. Michael, I've heard of him. He has a good reputation in the police force. Are you sure he can be trusted? Oliver said firmly, I believe him. And having law enforcement involved will probably make things move faster and more efficiently. Sophia thinks for a moment, then nods in agreement. You're right. Having law enforcement involved is indeed a good idea. But we still need a backup plan. She pulled 2 small USB drives out of her bag. All the evidence is here. I encrypted them, and the password is the date of our first date. One is for Michael, the other. She hesitated. The other. I'd like you to give to my friend James Carter, who is an investigative journalist. If for some reason the official investigation is thwarted, we have another outlet to speak out. Oliver received the flash drives and felt that they weighed much more than their actual size. He carefully placed them in his pocket. I understand. I'll get them to Michael and James respectively as soon as I can safely. But Sophia, what about after this? What are you going to do? There was a flash of uncertainty in Sophia's eyes. I'm not sure, Oliver. Maybe I need to go away for a while until things settle down. But right now the most important thing is to make sure this evidence reaches the right people. Oliver looked deep into Sophia's eyes, feeling that connection between them that had been lost and found. We'll face this together, he said finally, reaching out to take Sophia's hand. And when this is over, we'll talk about our future. Sophia showed her first genuine smile in months, albeit with a hint of apprehension. Thank you, Oliver. I know it won't be easy, but with you by my side, I think we can get through this. As they locked eyes, Oliver felt a mixture of emotions. He knew that the road ahead was full of challenges and dangers, but at least this time, they would be working together. Passing on this evidence is just the beginning of something new, and they have a long way to go. But at the moment, they found each other, and that's all that matters. Oliver stood up and prepared to leave. I'll contact Michael and James as soon as I can, he said. You be careful, Sophia. If there are any problems, contact me immediately. Sophia nodded. You be careful too, Oliver. Remember, don't trust anyone except Michael and James. As Oliver walks out of the office, he feels the weight of the flash drive in his pocket, as well as the weight on his shoulders and the determination in his heart. He knew that the next move could change the lives of many, including his own. But he's ready to face any challenge, for justice and for Sophia. Upon leaving the hospital, Oliver felt a weight heavier on his shoulders than any complex heart surgery. He carefully arranged the meeting with Michael and James, making sure no one noticed. First, Oliver meets Michael in a quiet cafe. When he handed the flash drive to Michael, there was a flash of surprise and determination in the latter's eyes. There's information in here that could shake the entire justice system, Michael whispered. I'll make sure it's handled properly. The next day, Oliver meets James Carter in the park. The veteran investigative journalist received the flash drive with a glint of excitement in his eye. If this information is true, James said, it will be one of the biggest stories in recent years. Over the next few weeks, the police investigation grew like a snowball, implicating more and more people. At the same time, James' story created a media furor and public trust in the justice system was severely shaken. Mark Johnson and several other judges have been arrested, and the whole city seems to be talking about this huge corruption scandal. At the center of this storm, Oliver has kept a low profile, focusing on his medical work. But his heart was never at peace, always thinking of Sophia and wondering if she was safe. Finally, a month after the storm had died down, Oliver received a message from Sophia asking him to meet her on the banks of the Charles River. When Oliver arrives at the appointed place, he sees Sophia sitting on a bench by the river, looking out over the sparkling water. The sunlight splashed on her face, and Oliver noticed that she looked much more relaxed than the last time he'd seen her. "Hi," Oliver said softly, taking a seat next to her. Sophia turned her head and smiled at him. "Hi, Oliver. Thanks for coming." They were silent for a while, just watching the river flow in silence. Finally, Sophia spoke up. "I owe you a full explanation, Oliver." She took a deep breath and began to tell the whole story. She explains how she inadvertently found out about this corrupt network, how she was threatened and coerced, and how the intimate gestures between him and Mark were all in play. "I know I hurt you," Sophia said, tears glistening in her eyes, "but I really had no choice. I couldn't risk getting you involved." Oliver listened quietly, feeling the emotions swirling inside him. When Sophia finished speaking, he gently took her hand in his. "Sophia," he said, his voice catching a little, "I'm the one who should be apologizing. I should have believed you. I should have given you a chance to explain my behavior. I'm terribly sorry for that." Sophia shook her head. "We all made mistakes, Oliver. The important thing is that we're here now and it's over." Oliver stares into Sophia's eyes and sees the pain, the fear, but also the hope and love they share. "So," he asked softly, "what do we do now?" Sophia showed a soft smile. "Maybe we could start over?" Oliver felt a warmth rise in his heart. He stood up and offered Sophia his hand. "So, Sophia Walker, would you like to have dinner with me?" Sophia took his hand with a smile and stood up. "My pleasure, Dr. Thompson." As they walked hand in hand along the Charles River, Oliver felt a peace that had been missing for a long time. He knew that there might still be challenges on the road ahead, but as long as they were together, there was nothing that couldn't be overcome. The sun was warm on them, and the river flowed happily, as if celebrating the lovers' rediscovery of each other. After all the turmoil, Oliver and Sophia are finally ready to start a new life, a new chapter filled with hope and love. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.